Think about it, you can get a tan line in 0.2 seconds. The sun is hot.
Nothing bad. Vacation, right?
Look at this dude.
What are you looking at?
There you are. Been gone for quite a while, love.
In the build-up to Starfield's release, Bethesda and Todd showcased a lot of eye candy and gave interviews elaborating how this game is the next generation of gaming experience from them.
We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game.
The events with Todd and Philly Xbox convinced several people to invest in this game and part with their savings for what is essentially to the socket white jellies of someone who has never played any Bethesda games, No Man's Sky RPG Edition. So before I praise to the high heavens and criticize to the 7th layer in hell regarding every pixel on the cheese in the game, a bit of context. For the record, it's not like I've never heard of Bethesda or their games before. More often than not, I've watched my friends play their games from time to time, enjoying themselves exploring a desolated nuclear dystopian landscape, or a fantasy wonderland where the NPCs give you quests and you venture out into the open world where the dragon tries to bite your head off. Yes, these genres are favored by people with a curiosity for exploring these amazing worlds, and then modding the heck out of them. Unlike my doo-doo brain that just likes a clustered city with neon lights and bright billboards with advertisements. The games themselves never piqued my curiosity, but it was the mouth-to-ear communication where many of my friends would describe certain aspects of Bethesda games that they enjoy. It wasn't until Bethesda Showcase when they revealed the shipbuilding elements and modular gun upgrades that gave the illusion of unlimited choice.
So many activities!
Coupled with the communication medium from many of my friends who enjoy Bethesda games, built a grander image of Starfield in my head. Though the build-up to it was rather shaky with all the information that was being put out. Nevertheless, I decided to consume some cheese and purchase my first ever Bethesda game. And while we're on the topic of Todd, we may as well get over this meme man. The reason for that is because Todd loves sweet little lies.
It allows us to have 16 times the detail.
Many of his recent claims that were put on a pedestal were challenged when the game released and it would underdeliver, not what he claimed to be, or just straight up missing from the game. It's like your local car salesman saying, the car comes with 4 wheels. What he won't say is that those tires are made in China and have the same lifespan as that mozzarella cheese in the back of your fridge. From the duffel bag to the power armor helmet and all the broken promises Todd scattered along the way. Guessing Todd sacrificed the quality of Fallout 76 just to sleep with Elon Musk in his Tesla Cybertruck just so he could buy a Tesla himself for a big discount.
We finally connected, I think it was when I bought my Tesla.
Yeah.
So with most of the context put aside, let's answer the question in the title of this video. What is Starfield like if you've never played any Bethesda games before? The story begins in the same Elder Scrolls V Skyrim popularized meme. After hitting your head on the wall due to the lack of health and safety precautions, you were rescued by your boss and co-worker who helped you ease out of amnesia, and you, the player, just takes advantage of it by twisting their past because you are now going to decide the twisted fate of who your character is. Nevertheless, you are introduced to the character creation screen where your character finally starts its suffering. To start off, there is the insane choice of building your character with their own backstory. Your character can be anywhere from Harold, random Bangladeshi guy, Todd Howard, or any celebrity that you have a crush on.
Obviously, a nice take on Obama. The person said they're playing as a diplomat. It's made by Buttercup Z575.
And these backstories affect where you start in the game and what resources you have access to. You can start out as an Indian immigrant sending whatever money you earn to your parents to pay off the house debt, or getting kicked out because you failed in life, so you make friends with an intergalactic pirate crew. Once you've built your character, selected your character's preferred broken pronouns, and dealing with the PlayStation 3 facial hair, after a fight with some of the pirates, you meet with Barrett, who points out how he's had the same vision as you did. And just after that initial meet, he gives you his spaceship, which happens to be on a forever loaner that you can modify entirely or sell it and face nothing but praises for it. Once you get your first ship, you are told to navigate across one solar system to the other called
Alpha Centauri!
where you end up in New Atlantis on a planet Gemisum, a large city that humans colonize very quickly, like rabbits. Once you meet up with the team, you begin your adventure to find more of the artifacts across the galaxy. You then go on to build a chain of contacts on your journey across several solar systems and planets and find more of the artifacts. Along the journey, you come across several key turning points in the story that decide the fate of your character and close associate NPCs. Once you get over the fate of your associate NPCs, you then come across an intergalactic species in their pimped out spaceships called Starbound, who reveal the truth about the events of what happened on Earth. After that, you decide the fate and find the last few artifacts which lead you to a hidden temple where you engage in a battle with either or both of the Starbounds based on your choices earlier. Once you've molested and obliterated them with your Grendel, you head to Unity where you meet yourself? A parallel version of yourself who drones on with instructions on how passing through the Unity will start the new game plus. Except unlike other games, you leave everything behind. This includes your ships, guns, all the cribs you've bought, and even the cheese. Your character also has their genitals untouched and becomes a virgin Starbound to loop the story all over again. Now, from my experience having played peak story-driven single-player games, as story goes, this felt rather mediocre to say the least, with no proper writing or narrative. The plot of the story isn't bad, there's a mystery behind it that you chase and unravel it. But what kills the storytelling isn't just bad writing, but the sheer amount of side and main context of the story and build up to it. An example of bad writing can be found in the 2 side quests that I did. In one of them, you join a corporation called Ryujin. You are given straightforward tasks by Imogen, who judges your competence. As you progress through her quests, you gain her trust and ultimately get promoted to work with the CEO of Ryujin. You learn very quickly of some shady dealings going on behind the scene, and you're given the task to find the mole. Imogen gets ousted from the company because the blame is put on her, but you continue the investigation behind to prove her innocence. To aid you further in the investigation, you are given a mind manipulation cybernetic implant prototype from the CEO who backs it to be mass-produced. If you succeed in proving Imogen innocent and finding the mole, the shady dealings done by the mole will be caught, and Imogen, who hired you, will have her position retained in the company while you get a promotion. But since this is a Bethesda game, this quest can end in any number of ways based on the player's preferred dialogue selection. A great deal how Bethesda made its mark, though everything isn't cheddar cheese and cabernet wine. Throughout the whole quest, the build-up to finding the shady dealings and the mind manipulation just didn't exist. There are a certain turn of events in this quest which are thrown at you. What's more, the entire questline has you going from one planet to another, and because you have to go from one solar system to another and then land on that planet to go into a building, then go through a few rooms to the far end of the building, you are effectively sitting through several loading screens just to fetch the damn documents or recording. Oh, and it doesn't end there. You have to go through the way you came back in, which means loading screens galore. And after 57 different loading scenes, you finally have completed one quest. One. Ugh.
See, now that's some bullshit.
One of the biggest complaints about this, and it's an issue everyone agrees on, is just how many loading screens there are between walls. The reason for this is because when you drop an item on that spot in the world and come back to that spot after 100 hours of gameplay, that said item will still be there as is untouched, just like the McDonald's cheeseburger. Every item in the game has physics to them which move based on the gravity of the planet you're on. It makes for some fun throw-arounds and watching enemies get knocked off their feet and thrown 50 feet back when you shoot them, but with all those loading screens, that fun just feels taxed. It's kind of weird saying this, but the loading screens just ruin the storytelling in this game. Another way the story just doesn't live up to it is with the rather stereotyped visualization of a character belonging to a certain trade. To support this argument, I played the Crimson Fleet Space Pirates questline. The Ryujin questline showed an over-exaggeration of how corporations deal with espionage. The Crimson Fleet questline, if you select your life path as an outlier, will see you start off as a delinquent who didn't like obeying rules become the leader of the Crimson Fleet. The questline starts with you securing your pilot's license and then getting to work with a scientist who is trying to unravel the mystery of the terrormorphs. That in itself is another questline that sees you earn a penthouse upon completion where you can showcase all the cheese from the galaxy. After solving the mystery by going on an adventure with her, you are promoted to work as an undercover agent for the United Colonies SysDev. Here your objective is to find a way to join the Crimson Fleet, earn their trust and climb the trust ladder. After finding their HQ, you meet Delgado, the leader of the Crimson Fleet, who gives you a series of tasks to impress him. It's our job to impress him in locating a large space vessel that was carrying a hangar full of cash that got lost in space. Throughout the questline, he and his fleet manager give you some fetch quests and assassination missions while we secretly report it to the UC SysDev. The fetch quests are boring but do add to the plot later on. As for the assassination missions, if you've invested in the social skill tree, which I'll touch on later in the video, then you can offer some Swiss cheese and Cabernet wine and have them say that they are dead and move on. In the end, you find the vessel, extract all the cash from the hangar, and escape the now doomed vessel. Now you're given the choice to return the cash back to the UC SysDev and have Delgado arrested, or betray them and join the Crimson Fleet. Here's my problem with this questline. I don't know which living specimen wrote the character's personality for the Crimson Fleet, but I'm sure as ever that person most likely never had cheese and has never experienced Stockholm Syndrome, or even interacted with one to write these characters. In other words, all the questline characters feel like someone's imagination of what a bad person would be in the most stereotypical manner.
Talk sense into me? You're the one who's lost their mind. What the hell happened to you?
All the crew members and leaders of the Crimson Fleet are portrayed as delinquents who are rejected by society, and they all amass together to form an outlaw criminal nexus whose leader is also about as bright as charcoal cheese. And it's all just so bad. So bad. I can't believe I spent 200 hours playing this game, and this is despite me never having played any previous Bethesda games to pit it against. It's like the story writing was done in a room with lots of NASA scientists and Hollywood writers both conflicting with their views. And in the midst of left and right-sided brains fighting, the story draft got written and got approved by Todd.
Wow, thanks, Professor. That's just terribly fascinating.
There were talks about how this could have been avoided without Microsoft intervening when they bought Bethesda, but the truth is, even before Philly Xbox bought the company, before PlayStation could buy it, the story was already written and the game was already being made. The Microsoft money just made things easier and quicker for the team to finish and release it and make PlayStation fans jealous. Though based on the overall feedback and the recent reports, it would appear PlayStation has got their last laugh. The way character dialogue plays out is you approach them and press a prompt over them to engage in a conversation. Then you enter this weird zoomed in scene with a character who gives you the "I'm dead inside" look and dialogue options for you to choose to engage with them. This is a key feature of all Bethesda games that all cultists have come to enjoy, and over the course of releasing games, they've only gotten bigger, just like the cheese industry. with more dialogue options are more branches of story outcomes. Very much like how changing the processing procedure after fermentation process changes what kind of cheese you get. Though the script for Starfield was much more thicker than the games before, my time playing the Society Ship quest shows that maybe quantity doesn't necessarily equate to better outcomes.
Sheila Holbrook is chair of the award committee this year. The way she dotes over that glorified trophy, you'd think it was her own child.
He's been spending a lot of time with Claudia Swist. Quality time, if you catch my meaning. I'm certain his wife doesn't know a thing about it.
He's been spending a lot of time with Quality time.
If you catch my meaning.
I'm certain his wife doesn't know a thing about it. Sheila Holbrook is chair of the award committee this year. The way she dotes over that glorified trophy, think it was her own child.
Yeah, maybe Todd might want to review the script next time he boasts about quantity of dialogues in the game. Also, maybe offer some cheese. I don't know what good quality cheese you can get in Rockville, but I sure hope the employees get to relieve the stress off them. Now, the one feature that I found to be very useful is the Persuasion Check. This is an old feature in Bethesda games that has been refined and carried over from previous games. Persuasion for noobs like me is a way to resolve conflicts without shooting your way through. Not every dialogue outcome should result in bloodshed and lead getting unloaded to get what you want. Sometimes it's just better to resolve conflicts through mere words, which result in more cheese being rewarded.
I'm glad you understand the position I'm in here. Fine. Get the hell out of here before I change my mind.
Persuasion, though looks tacky in my opinion, is a great saving grace for those who choose to have a pacifist outcome. It's a very powerful tool in the game and saves you a great deal of trouble of having to bypass the dialogue or sneaking past an enemy. Though it's not a tool you are an expert at, even though you can choose for your character during character creation. Even though you can persuade some low-level NPCs for side quests with it, you definitely want to invest into it if you want to have a shot at clearing higher risk enemies without turning yourself into Swiss cheese. I'm amazed this feature isn't used in real life. All those wars and conflicts going on in the world could be resolved if you just use Persuasion Check on the leaders of those nations and create world peace. Imagine all the cheese people could enjoy in those parts of the world. To do that, there's the skill tree in the game, and like any other game, investing in skills improves your chances at various aspects of the story. The skill tree is divided into 5 branches, each offering their own techniques and the ability to progress in the game. You have a branch for turning your character into a muscle mommy, which will be useful when your diplomacy skills fail you. The next branch allows you to be a shrewd negotiator, giving you the ability to talk your way out of hairy situations or give you a free pass to a reactor. Investing in combat is a no-brainer unless you have a death wish to do shrewd negotiation with an alien in the middle of a fight in a dark corridor. Science helps you understand what resources and life a planet has and how they can be used to your benefit, unless you plan on a Ooga Booga playthrough. Tech gives you the ability to build ships and use the jetpack. Without that, all and any saving grace of this game is gone, even the remaining ones too. It's also these persuasion skills that come in handy with your NPC companions. There are 4 characters that you can romance in the game: Barrett, Sarah, Andreja, and Sam Coe. Thanks to the RPG nature of the game and the way characters are written, all 4 of the romanceable NPCs are about as inclusive as your regular dairy cheese. Which means that regardless of your character's preference, all of them can be romanced. Or if that's not what you prefer, you can also get the option to make close friendship with them. In order to get that option, you need to bring along one of the companions with you on your journey. As you progress through the story and side quests with them, they will judge you like a house cat that notices all the good cheese that you consume and give the non-good bits to your cat. And if you help solve their life problems, you'll occasionally get the option to flirt with them, and occasionally they will give you a reward too. If you flirt too soon, they'll feel uncomfortable, but if you flirt with them on the right occasion, the response will open doors further down the story, giving you the option to take them out on a date and enjoy Parmigiano Reggiano with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc with them. Once you complete their side quests, you finally get the option to either romance them or make them as your best friend. If you choose to romance them, you get to hold a wedding ceremony with them. For my playthrough, I chose Sarah Morgan. She brings along her mom and one of her mentors from her job. Once you have tied the knot, you finally get to romance your companion. That is, if there was an option for it at all. Once you have tied the knot, the only option of romance you get is going to sleep and fast forwarding time, and that's it. The only change now will be that when you wake up from your bed, your romance NPC will wake up next to you in bed and say a brief one-line flirt. The only romance you now get are in the dialogue with them, where you get to flirt with them. In many games, you're at least rewarded with a cutscene of your character and the NPC you chased after so much. But in Starfield, there is no sense of bond other than a few dialogue options that open up after you successfully romance or make friendship with them. These are supposed to be critical moments in your character's story development, and the only way the game rewards you is with some dialogue option. Really, you have to question some of Todd's decision making here. I didn't realize that I would have to rely on the modding community to fill the gap left for Bethesda to fulfill my immersion. And with that disappointment out of the way, let's move on to the next lie by Todd. One of the features Todd boasted about Starfield was that it would have 1,000 different planets, each of those planets confined to a specific solar system and being round just like how the Flat Earth Society also believes it to be as well. Probably. Thankfully, Bethesda consulted NASA to create universes and solar systems just as how they are discovered and where they are. Going from one planet to another is about as easy as making a cheese sandwich. As long as you're not carrying a Parmigiano Reggiano cheese wheel, you can fast travel to any planet within your ship's reach. This is where I found another reason why Bethesda cultists love the game so much. The worlds aren't just large, but diverse, filled with all sorts of challenges and unexpected quests. Terrains that undulate in all directions stretch out over the horizon before the biome changes, with each of them bringing their own resources and quests. With Starfield, Bethesda changed things around a little. While the planets discovered by NASA are all there, what isn't there are the environments. This opens the creativity window for environment design. Rather than make the planets as is, every planet environment is randomly generated. This includes the gravity, oxygen levels, temperatures, and even the habitat. So every time you play a new character, there will be a different atmosphere to experience on that same planet. It's like going into a locker room, popping in a few LSD pills and coming out to experience an entirely different world. With so many randomly generated planets to explore, you'd expect to get the full connoisseur experience. Right? Right?
Wrong.
Here's my issue with it. What we've heard in the PR and the praise from my friends who played Bethesda games, none of what was described was there when I finally got around to playing it. What they didn't mention is how barren all these planets really are. It's like getting a Parmigiano Reggiano cheese wheel at Tesco. It's anything but authentic Italian Parmesan cheese. Yes, they did say the game will have 1,000 planets with randomly generated atmosphere, but many of those planets have nothing for miles and miles. You keep walking and walking, rarely coming across anything interesting like a bad dream. And when you do come across something interesting, you basically reach the edge of the exploration area for that landing spot. Yeah, that's right. Once you make a virgin landing on any planet, you get a specific radius where you explore the empty barren planet. This is possibly Todd teasing how your life will be an empty void like these planets, while he just gets a free Tesla from Elon Musk. The one thing that would have improved exploration would be a car or a space buggy. Yes, the game does have jetpacks, but all you do is hop around before the charge is vaporized. Though this is fun when you're on planets with low gravity, but that's about it. So just as I was finishing editing this video, Bethesda dropped the much anticipated buggy vehicle along with the Shattered Space DLC, which I will talk about towards the end of the video. But let's get over the REV-8 Buggy real quick. You can buy it from the spaceport technician who sells it for 25,000 credits. Once you own the space buggy, it automatically spawns next to your ship when you land. Besides the paint, the vehicle can be upgraded via your character's lasers, heavy weapons and demolition skills, weirdly. As for the appearance, it looks a lot like car makers build something for the SEMA Motor Show and then never see the light of day, but nothing that modders can't fix. The design of the vehicle makes you wonder whether you can store anything in it at all other than the flesh piloting in it. Thankfully, even if you get encumbered, you can get into the buggy and move at normal pace, as it doesn't seem to care how much cesium you are carrying. As for driving this thing, it is by far the most frustrating controls that I have ever come across for any vehicle in any game. It doesn't have the traditional vehicle controls, but instead you drive using the forward directional key and then use your mouse to point in the direction you want the vehicle to travel in. Even though you can change this from the settings, there is still no traditional vehicle controls in the game, which means throughout your drive you are looking straight up all the time with no free cam to pan while you're driving. It feels like you're being treated like a horse with blinders because you could get distracted or spooked while driving. Couple this with low gravity planets and suddenly you're playing drunk driving simulator. This also gets frustrating as the buggy also happens to have a gun that you can use for drive-bys. But with the camera stuck pointing in the direction the buggy is traveling in, it makes it impossible to shoot anything on the side not in the line of your path, which means the only way to shoot enemies is to commit roadkill. Thankfully, the REV-8 Buggy is built like a tank and any damage sustained can be reset once you respawn it. Knowing you would end up road raging or flipping it while exploring low gravity planets thanks to the nightmarish controls, they thought about it and gave the buggy both vertical and acceleration boosters to help you restore your dignity. Unfortunately, the addition of the buggy doesn't move the needle enough to change my opinion of this game, so the rest of the video remains unchanged. Now back to the big point of this video. The way I got around this monotonous torture was by installing mods and cheats to walk faster across these barren fields. Maybe that's what they should have called this game instead, Barrenfield. And for good reason why Starfield feels this way. A lot of devs found when making open worlds that players tend to stay engaged in exploration for about 40 seconds. It was necessary to design a world with points of interest after 40 seconds of travel to keep the player retention. But Starfield just throws that rule out and instead points how astronauts had similar experience.
This is a certified raw moment.
There was so much potential for creativity with these incredible worlds, and instead we got barren, empty void planets with nothing in them. Because that's how astronauts felt when they explored the moon according to Bethesda apparently. Honestly, at this point I'm amazed that No Man's Sky didn't steal the spotlight from Starfield. And since we're on the topic of planets, I may as well touch on the gravity as well. In Barrenfield, the planet Earth's gravity is taken as the standard despite the fact the human race has moved out of planet Earth. There are planets with varying gravitational forces, some have more, some don't have as much. It becomes challenging to hop on a planet with gravity that is more than one. But I think the developers might have missed a point or two with gravity. You see, your character has weight limit. Upon exceeding it, the oxygen counter very quickly drops and regenerates slowly again once you stop walking. Oxygen is also responsible for your stamina endurance in the game. The more your character sprints, the more oxygen it consumes. And once your character runs out of oxygen, you see the screen beginning to blur out. Just like when you haven't consumed cheese for eons, you sit down and clutch yourself with one eye twitching and your pupil growing in size to remind you that cheese is life. The way oxygen and weight limit is coded in the game is up until the weight carrying capacity of your character, the stamina and oxygen are unaffected. But once it crosses the limit, you are immediately encumbered, even if that one unit weighing you down is a flower Sarah gave you. And your chances of survival have now been dictated by that flower you are carrying. Whether you should let go of that exquisite cheese you found, or ditch the token of appreciation from your romanceable partner and be left single for life.
There's one condition, Michael. Yes, you have to fire the salesman that treated me so terribly. Don't do it, Michael.
But here's what bothered me so much. When you go on a planet with lower gravity than 1, everything your character is carrying doesn't reduce in weight. If I am encumbered on Earth, Why the fuck am I also encumbered on Uranus as well when the gravity sucks less than on Earth?
That detective is the right question.
I shouldn't even be able to bring up the thought of having to decide between my character's love for her life and my cheese. Why is it that when I want to carry my cheese across the galaxy, should I be put in a dilemma whether to drop my Parmesan cheese wheels because I'll be encumbered no matter where I go? It's the most weirdest question I ask in this video, but even I know how gravity works thanks to the science I learned in school.
Okay dude, calm down, take a chill pill.
So far, my experience with Barrenfield just hasn't been great. Maybe this could be redeemed with flying and building spaceships. That's what caught my eye. As I love playing with Lego, this felt like being a kid in a toy store. Like I described in the story segment, you get the ship on a forever lease from Barrett that you can sell once you have a second ship in your storage. Once you get the ship, that unlocks fast travel. The way fast travel works in the game is determined by what grav jump your ship is equipped with. The ship you get at the start of the game mostly has Class A parts, which means you get the range of a mosquito. To get better range, you upgrade the grav jump or install one from higher class. And speaking of classes, the ship in Barrenfield are classified based on the core reactor they are equipped with. The core reactor is what powers the ship and ultimately decides what class of grav jump can be fitted to it. There are three things that determine how big or powerful your ship can be: the core reactor, the amount of power all the weapons and grav drive consume, and the weight. You can build big chungus that can carry all your excess, or you can have a space corvette with lots of firepower. Size and weight also determines the maneuverability of your ship. If you want to go further with lots of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese wheels in your cargo hold, you'd build big chungus. But if you want to be as agile as Scarlett Johansson, best put your ship on a diet. Now let's talk about my favorite part of all this, which is shipbuilding. You see, in the vehicle combat MMO War Thunder, all the vehicles are basically just sum of parts stuck together. Similarly, in Barrenfield, all the pieces of ships are just modular blocks stuck onto one another, very much like Lego. This means, majority of the time, almost any build that isn't your first spaceship will look as tacky as any Lego set. There are several brands within the game, each with their own lore, that offer various modular components that can be installed with other brand components. But what annoys me is the inconsistency, as every component has its own style and tapering hexagon details to them. This means while you're able to join any component from any two different brands together, you are left with gaping holes the size of an edgy adult star with her ruined peach hole where you can probably hide all the Epstein files. Because there aren't many rules to play by, it is possible to build the ship however your imagination allows you to be. You can build iconic ships of Star Wars movies, from the X-Wing, Imperial Star Destroyer, or even the Millennium Falcon, to forging your path to meme glory with things like School Bus, Duck, Penis, or even the invincible Hollow Cube. Which brings me to the ship flying and space combat. Once you've taken off, you enter the planet's orbit, and in this void surrounding the planet is where you can fly your ship around. And that's about it. Bruh. No, for real, the way vehicles work in this game is you can only fly ships in the planet's orbit and nowhere else. You can try to fly into the planet with full speed from the orbit, though because there are no barriers, you just end up flying into the JPEG image of the planet, which increasingly becomes pixelated as you fly into it.
Ooh. It was flat. Pluto confirmed flat!
And if you try to fly away from it and towards one of the moons, you just end up flying into the void. So apparently, while this is Bethesda's first game with interactive vehicles, their purpose is restricted by their choice to only fly around the JPEG image of the planet. For a game that claims itself to be an RPG, it feels about as free as trying to express yourself in China.
朋友是一个前任5的纪录片，在香港这座城市的社区。
As for the combat, which also takes place around the JPEG image, it feels slightly redeemable. Sure, the combat is fun. You shoot a random ship and it fires back at you. And if your ship has better shields, weapons and maneuverability, you can outmaneuver and turn it into small chunks of cheese flying across the space. Oh, and even loot cheese if they happen to have it. But very much like your character, your ship too takes damage and needs healing. To fix your ship, you'll need ship parts that ships drop when you turn them into Swiss cheese. Or if you have IQ higher than Amanda Bynes, just take out their engines by zooming in and locking onto them like a professional stalker, dock and board their ship, engage in close quarter combat with the enemies, and loot even more cheese. Even better, once you're on board the enemy ship, you can undock from your ship and just like that end up with a free ship that is worth around 75 pence. All of this is possible if your gun is bigger and better than that of the enemies. All hunky-dory. But let's look at the feature I was looking forward to, which is gunsmithing. In the Barrenfield universe, despite the abandoned research stations spread across the desolated world, there is a chance there will be crawling with space pirates. It doesn't matter whether they belong to the Crimson Fleet or the Eclectic faction, they will swarm any abandoned research stations. Anywho, what I've noticed is when you kill them, they drop their gun and you can loot their body like any other Bethesda games. The guns many of these space pirates have variety to them, like Grendel, 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 and Grendel. Quite the variety of guns. Nevertheless, they have some variation to them, including weapon rarity and perks. The higher the rarity, the more perk it comes with. At least you get various classes of guns, from the old earth pistols, wood finished ones to suppress Gatling guns, and even energy guns. Just like how there is a type of cheese to go along with certain foods, there is a gun for every occasion, enemy and situation. And if you aren't satisfied with the Grendel variation the game has to offer, you can always take it to gunsmithing. These can be found at gun shops around the city. Or if your ship has a module with workshop, you can work on your gun on the go. Once you've acquired enough skill tree points to use gunsmithing, all that is needed are resources to modify them. Every gun in the game has at least one modification that you can craft. But what I was let down by was just how the gun feels in the game. I personally like guns that make you feel like you're eating smoked pepper cheese. That heavy smoked flavor that fills your mouth when you take a bite out of it. In Barrenfield, that smoked flavor is extinguished. Doesn't matter if you change your all 7 slots, it still doesn't feel punchy or even challenging to use. Yes, I get this game isn't Call of Duty or Cyberpunk, but even for an open world game, the guns all feel more or less the same to me. And to make matters worse, the combat mostly involves guns. Sure, there are grenades and mines you can deploy, but even those suffer from the same problem. For a game that's set in 2300s, there just isn't any other tactical equipment that you can deploy to take out the targets. Most of the shooty explodey stuff in the game just feels linear and monotonous, which was a huge letdown because I was so looking forward to this. I mean, there are certain cheese that I looked forward to trying out only to be let down by the flavor, or that it just wasn't what I was expecting to be. Heck, there's even a 40-minute long in-depth video on YouTube that goes over all the problems with the guns in Barrenfield. Thankfully, the suppressors in the game work as intended, combining the skills of stealth and suppressors along with shrewd negotiating skills.
Shrewd negotiation.
You can easily beat this game most of the way without firing any shots. That is, however, if the stealth were to actually work. When you are venturing out on a quest, the RPG nature of the game plays well with the world setting. The cities like Neon and some space stations make for great stealth missions. There are gigantic ventilation ducts that even allow your mom to be stealthy. When you crouch, you get a detection bar at the top side of your screen. And if you complete a mission at the start of the game about a secret a mom keeps for her son, you'll end up with a cloaking ability. And that helps with stealth a lot. Or so I thought so. Once again, Bethesda finds a way to disappoint me over there as well by breaking the stealth too. For a start, the detection bar tells you nothing. Even when you get detected, there is no response from the enemies. And then all of a sudden, you are detected by the enemies out of nowhere, and that just breaks all the immersion. To make matters worse, your companions have about as much of a sense of direction as James May.
Cheese.
If you come across a stealth section that has an upward diagonal path, your NPC companion will backtrack all the way back down and run up to your current location by running past every single enemy, alerting them of your presence along the way. Why are you this dumb?
I do not know.
Did Todd not feed you the right amount of cheese? Or was the quality of cheese not right for your brain neutrons to function? What is your problem? Ugh!
I do not know.
Ugh. Let's just forget about it and move on. Since I spoke about cities and space stations earlier, let's touch on those too. The cities were promised to be the biggest Bethesda has ever built, and every city having its own vibe too. Like the Neon City has a cyberpunk vibe, even though people made comparisons against Night City from Cyberpunk 2077, I still don't think that they are that comparable. Despite the fact Neon City has a verticality similar to Night City and the Neon Light District. Every city has multiple services to offer, from clothes, guns, in hotels, restaurants, grocery store that, depending on which galaxy you're in, the right stock of cheese. But as usual, even that has a problem. You see, when you compare the PR noise before this game released versus after playing it now, you realize that Atlantis is the only largest city that also happens to have the tallest buildings and is built on the edge of a waterfall. So there is that topology difference between land. And in order to get around the city, once again you have to sit through the loading screen marathon just to get to the other side of the city. Honestly, it makes me question how in the world was this game innovative enough to win Steam's Innovation of the Year award.
This is a certified bruh moment.
But hey, if you don't like all those loading screens, you can always start your own settlement on a desolate planet with resources. Remember your boss and co-worker at the start of the game? You can recruit them for your outpost. Outposts are what defines this game. Everyone is looking to pay the debt off by working in the mining business. And outposts are where you can elevate yourself all over the other pleb miners. This gives you an opportunity to accumulate, mine and sell resources to fill your everlasting capitalist greed for better everything. And as always, there is a but in it. The outpost, while a superb idea, is completely marred down by the fact that there is no tutorial on the who, what, where, why and how of it. It just gives you a quick cards of instructions to go through and lets you go on your way. And it's your job to figure it all out. Luckily, there are many Bethesda dedicated content creators that provide all the necessary context and explanation of outposts. It almost feels like the game was designed for a seasoned Bethesda player. Tutorials that are considered essential in any shooter games are somehow missing entirely for something that is considered to be the core part of the game. Let me remind you that this is me as a Bethesda newbie elaborating my experience interacting with this barren, empty void of nothing that I spent $70 on. And so far, most of the things I interacted with in this game just hasn't been positive. And yet, I made this video of my suffering and putting it out for all to you to see. I guess the only good thing about Starfield is the texture of food. I mean, look at it. That is the most well-detailed food that I've ever seen in any video game. I know I put a lot of my obsession with cheese in this video, but to take a break from it and observe food other than cheese in the game just makes this peak video game development. I also couldn't help but notice the vast amounts of Indian food in the game too. And I think I know why. NASA has a lot of scientists from India, so when Bethesda approached them to build the game, they probably got a lot of side quests from them too. Every food in the game has different stats. Some will restore your health, while there are others that will temporarily boost your other stats. There's two types of consumable in the game. There's your stuff where cheese is, and Xanax. If you have allocated the points correctly in the skill tree, Then you can craft Xanax or cheese at medical research station or the cooking station respectively. That will be very useful when your companion will abandon your character and you'll need to cope the boredom by making coping drugs yourself. Or in case if you get stuck with a stubborn NPC and firing lead isn't an option, but you wish to persuade them, simply pop in a few pills and for the time being, you'll be able to sweet talk your way out of any hairy situation. Obviously, I kind of went on rambling many minutes about a video game that basically has nothing. But like I pointed out at the start of the video about this being a personal viewpoint of me experiencing a Bethesda game for the very first time, maybe my experience could change with mods. The Bethesda community is insanely talented with the sheer amount of mods they make after all. Some that even go on to start a career thanks to the modding tools and options in these games. Sure, the mods are a little technically challenging to install, but the options for role-playing fun is about as exquisite as enjoying Parmigiano Reggiano cheese with Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc on a balcony on a beautiful sunset in the south of France. But sadly, despite the potential this game has, it appears that some of the big names in the community called it quits. Not a good sign. Though it's not like it's the end of the world, there are other things to do in the game. Like me, if you have an obsession of Legos and flying ships and cheese, then you can build and fly some bizarre ships in front of planets and meteors, and then proceed to shoot down random passing ships and get a bounty and escape to another system. There's the lockpicking, which gets technical based on the difficulty despite not rewarding you with anything. Pulling up your inventory and stating all the cheese in the game, or just making screenshots of your ships and planets you visit. So despite being a barren, empty game, there is still something for people to enjoy. Now lastly, let's talk about the Shattered Space DLC expansion. This was a much anticipated DLC as it aimed to address the issues of the game while adding more context to the story. Historically, Bethesda's expansion content always addressed the story's cliffhanger endings while adding more content to the game, and Bethesda loyalists expected the same from Starfield as well. After all, Todd promised more DLCs for Starfield that are planned to release in the coming years. Except, this DLC would be anything but a addressal of the criticism even after a year of release.
Oh shit, here we go again.
The DLC starts as soon as you travel to a non-mission critical system and get a distress signal call from the Oracle space station. Once you board the station, you'll find it's covered with blue pulsing thingy and get attacked by phantoms. After fighting them off, the space station jumps to var apostrophe un apostrophe kai. The homeworld of the Andrejas people who worship serpents and tat themselves heavily with tribalism. Here you enter the city of Dazra, which is built around a gigantic spaceship that landed there, and the people were too lazy to look for a better spot to start civilization, so they just built the city around it and called it a day. Once you land here, you are treated with the utmost welcoming dignity.
Hold very still and choose your words carefully.
Then, by sheer luck, the speaker of House Varun, Anasko, who has also turned into a phantom, spawns near you. And your character just so happens to be the only person who can hear what the phantoms are bleating out. Realizing that you are the only hope for them to save their leader, they call off their standoff and take you to their ritual place to do things to make you one of their own, I guess. Here you learn the city is afflicted by explosions and has destroyed most of it along with its residents. You work with the three houses to find the source of explosions, phantoms, and Anasko himself. Once you find him, you will be given the choice to decide what the outcome of the story will be. And that's it. No, for real, the whole DLC is set on one planet with a total of about 20 missions, half of which I couldn't even complete because all the quests were bugged and broken, so I gave up halfway into it. They have patched it since then, but I honestly couldn't be asked to play what effectively feels like removed content put behind a paywall. What is even more disappointing is that if you have Andreja as your companion and bring her along to her home planet, She reacts to her surrounding in the same way as Stephen Hawking did when he was on the Epstein Island.
Oh, that feels so good. Oh, like that. Oh, baby, I thought about this all day.
Like, how do you make a DLC around a key NPC and not have them react to the surrounding? And the disappointment list continues. The DLC can be finished in about an hour or two, with majority of the content revolving around rescuing NPCs and fetch quests. Heck, these 20 quests shouldn't even take 2 hours. The only reason it does so is because of the location of the objective markers that spawn on the other side of the map, meaning half the time you are simply traveling from one side of the map to the other to complete the objective. This is effectively a cheap means of increasing the playtime, so it gives the illusion of having played a decent amount. But in reality, you just spend half your time being a nomad running around the city just to unlock fast travel points, which you will never use again.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
The clothing and weapon selection is also smaller than the aisles in a convenience store. There are no new ship parts, no new mini puzzles, and by far the biggest disappointment for me, no cheese.
Hey yo, what the fuck? There's no cheese?
All of which makes the $30 asking price look really steep. Alas, despite all the recent patches and the DLC, most of the stuff that people do for fun in previous Bethesda games just isn't here. Everything that my friends described me about Bethesda games felt like Swiss cheese made by an inexperienced cheesemaker. The holes are simply too big, and as a result, Starfield feels like I've paid too much for too little. Instead of putting out a PR statement decrying bad reviews, just take the L cause they made a game that didn't live up to expectations. Move on and just not repeat the same mistakes. Honestly, given the state of AAA games these days, I probably would have been better off spending $70 enjoying some cheap Parmesan cheese while playing some Moonbase Alpha.
Question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, aeiou.
That game feels more Starfield than whatever Barrenfield tried delivering. And that concludes my virgin experience playing a Bethesda game for the very first time. It obviously didn't leave a positive first impression that a Bethesda cultist would like to hear, but I'm all for giving second chances. Hopefully, my next Bethesda game would prove me wrong about my conclusions from this video, whenever that would be. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you like me to make similar videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'm gonna head off and enjoy myself some cheese.
No cheese?